Hi everyone. I'm here today chatting with Tracy Sorensen, who many of you will have remembered from me announcing my great favourite was The Lucky Gala back in 2018. And Tracy is here with me today to talk about her latest novel, which is called The Vitals, and it's published by Picador. All right, Tracy, welcome. It is lovely to see you.
It's lovely to be here.
Now, Tracy, if you were standing in my bookshop beside me and a customer sidled up and said, "Ooh, the Vitals, I wonder what that's about," what would you say to that customer?
Okay, I'd say this is a cancer memoir with a very big twist, and it's narrated entirely from the point of view of a person's internal organs. And I'd say you might or might not want to go down that road, but if you do, it's a wild and wacky road.
Now, you actually, just as a quick reminder, you call it a cancer memoir, but you've opted really for fiction. Why?
Yeah, it partly it was partly it's this question of positioning. So I had
Hmm.
this, which I hadn't heard of before. My agent said, "Well, what is this? How do we sell it? Um,
Hmm.
is it is it a memoir, in which case it's some kind of speculative non-fiction, or is it a
Okay.
work of fiction?" And I thought, well, people who might have cancer or be newly diagnosed, they probably want to read kind of very human and emotional and vulnerable stories about cancer and living with
Hmm.
cancer, and
Hmm.
they probably are not in the you know mental space necessarily for this very alternative way of telling a cancer story.
Yeah.
So I thought, and also because obviously I made shit up in all directions. I just thought it's kind of easier in the end to call it fiction. But I do think I do think speculative non-fiction is also applicable, because everything that happens in the vitals is actually things that did happen to me and my organs.
Yeah, so it's really sort of, framing it is a kind of a commercial operation, and this is one of our problems with genre, I
Yeah,
suppose, in the long run, because there are works of non-fiction out there which have huge fictional content, and there's auto-fiction, and goodness only knows,
yeah,
how you're supposed to slice up all those categories.
that's right.
One of the things, all right, so we have this assembly of different organs. And what you are doing, or what your novel is doing, is look, they're telling us a story, and they are telling us a story which is in reality quite a bleak one. But this never comes across in your novel at all. It's not about that. It's about, I suppose, in a plot line, it's about saving. Well, you don't really even figure that the person is not important.
No, no, that's
It's
right.
astonishing.
It's a radical decentering of the
Mm,
suffering individual human
mm,
subject. So for me, the key to it, in a sense, or the idea I'm exploring is what's an ecological way, perhaps, of telling a cancer story where it's not like, not everything's about us, and as we go more into climate change and environmental destruction, it's like there's a lot of different stories and a lot of different experiences happening, and a lot of things involve us, but they're not necessarily about us. So the organs are on their own
mm.
trip. They're having an experience, and they're not even all entirely sure that Tracy exists. So they have this discussion amongst themselves, like, Tracy is just a venue or a place like Paris, but Paris, you know, I mean, where's Paris? What? That's not a person. It's a venue and a place. And so what they need to do is keep their um, habitat alive. They need to keep their um, joint enterprise as as an assemblage going.
Mm. Yeah, so you refer to Tracy really as a kind of an assemblage, isn't it? Or of and the importance is to keep everything humming along. There's this lovely idea of this working in concert to hum along. One of the things, and you've just mentioned it there. I mean, when I was going to originally ask you how what's your plot? And what part is Tracy playing in this? Um, it reminded me of that. Is Tracy more than the sum of all her parts? And here we are, just looking at all your parts. They are each individually is a story. Now, tell me a little bit about these characters that you've come up with, because I had favorites. Did you have a favorite?
Oh yeah, yeah. But
Go on.
that kind of shifts around a little bit.
Yeah.
If any of them are a kind of alter ego, then it's probably the
You
uterus.
and the
um,
Kelpies. Come
and the
on.
Kelpies, yeah. And I'm a girl from the bush. uh, yeah.
Mm.
And but I also really like Pano, and because he's so different to me. But my other true favourite, maybe the above all of them, is Rage.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yes, Gaulois smoking and quoting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
His
So
French
yeah,
accent. Yeah, he's absolutely stunning. They are stunning characters. They really are. Oh yeah.
yeah. So Rage, yeah, Rage is kind of a bit of a kind of anarcho-communist. Um, quotes Deleuze and Marx.
Mm.
He's the kind of guy who might be talking to you at 2 a.m. after a long, party. Um, and yeah, he's pretty amazing. Yeah.
So a difficulty, I mean, if for most of us who would be coming to a novel like this and we'd be thinking about, all right, it's from the point of view of the organs, you were obviously up against this one, which I found fascinating, was what was the landscape that you were going to be able to put these characters into? And you can't have them, to be sort of blunt about it, sloshing about in your juices and, make it too tissuey and bloody. So how did you get over that hump of sort of how do I portray them aesthetically?
Mm.
What's their environment?
Yeah, yeah. So this is well, this was always going to be a big question, and
Mm,
almost a make or break question. It's like,
yeah.
can I create a world that people will go with? Will come with me on this trip, and maybe not everyone will come with me. So I ask quite a lot in terms of suspension of disbelief or whatever that is. But
Mm,
but
mm,
the way I thought about it, and actually, Rage, I just remembered I haven't closed all my tabs, and I think I was asked to close all my tabs. Anyway, it's all right. My computer has lots of tabs open, like my own mind.
mm,
Anyway,
yeah, but
hopefully everything's still working. Um, so it's like ourselves, we don't like, and Rage has a little speech in the novel about this. He says, well, when someone comes up to you and says, who are you or what do you do, you don't tend to say, well, I produce, X litres of bile a week. I produce, 7 or 8 turds. I send some blood around. I do snot, and
mm,
I mean,
mm,
so we are these incredibly organic, dripping, leaking things, but we
mm.
but we think of ourselves entirely differently. We think of ourselves in terms of the books we've read and where we've travelled, and
Oh
our
yes.
relationships and decor and all this kind of stuff. So I kind of, I mean, I'm telling an ecological story, but I'm anthropomorphizing my characters, obviously, and
Yes, not de-anthropomorphizing, which I've seen bandied around on some of the reviews about how you de-anthropomorphize, and you're not. You're
I'm
anthropomorphizing your own
anthropomorphizing.
and
Yes,
decentering the human,
yes, that's
the
right. Yeah,
the
because I
individual.
that's right. Yeah, because I still needed characters, and also I am a human, and one way I think about that is like the characters in the novel, these organs, are all kind of infected by Tracy in a sense. Like
Mm,
I in inverted commas kind of run through them. They have a lot of my memories and attitudes and problems.
likes. Mm.
Yeah, that are kind of approached obliquely. But yeah, yeah, the yeah, Rage sort of says it in the novel explicitly. Yeah. So then it was like, if you like, I don't think of myself as just blood and guts. I think of myself in this room and blah, and my career or things I've done, and it's the same with these organs. They don't, when they're putting their best foot forward, they have this kind of other
Mm.
more romantic view of themselves. So Pano is a 1970s muscle car. Ute is a ute with kelpies. Um, you know, um, Maureen is is an apron. Yeah, they kind of have these almost avatars. Each one of them has a kind of an avatar that is more interesting than their meat self.
Yes. Now, we've looked at this idea of your creating your landscapes for them, and you have allowed Ute, for example, to have an outback landscape, and we can put Rage into you get that sense of a French sort of dive bar. And people are in their offices or on their throne. I was fascinated by why you made, and I loved this, but I want you to tell us about it, about why Baby was, so Baby being the original first tumor, why Baby is seductive but also loved.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Baby.
Okay. Yeah. Well, one impulse is to work against a little bit. The idea that tumors are straightforwardly baddies. So
Mm,
I believe or attempted to create two reasonably sympathetic characters that do need to be lopped for sure. but but they're not evil in and of themselves or anything like that. So I'm kind of working against that. But the other thing is that scientifically and biologically, tumors evade our immune system, and um,
mm,
so they actually seduce the body into thinking that
yeah.
they should be there. So as soon as you have a word like seduce, then you're starting to suggest a character. So she is very seductive. I know I haven't really portrayed that very well here. Whoops, there, she's lost one of her eyes. um, but so she's kind of, you know, what she is this lobulated, dripping tumour. But the way she presents herself and the way she's seen by the other organs
Mm,
is
mm.
basically this incredibly attractive woman who I modelled a little, not exactly modelled, but I was thinking about Jane Birkin at the time.
Oh,
Uh, I was
oh la
thinking about
la.
Jane
Mm.
Birkin and Serge
And
Gainsbourg, um,
mm, strange.
and that sexy song they sang.
Mm,
Um, uh, so there's this incredible seductiveness about her, and it follows on from the biology, the
mm.
science of what tumors do in a human body.
All right, so you've talked about the sort of the biological, the kind of the factual side of this. Now, maybe um, you could tell me a little bit about the research that you had to do to be able to write this correctly, and if do you think that that research was, I hate to use the word facilitated, but you were obviously more drawn to it because you know exactly what's going on with this type of cancer. So talk to me a little bit about how your details happened.
Yeah. Okay. So I was diagnosed with primary peritoneal cancer in 2014, which is a variation on ovarian cancer, and
Mm,
ovarian cancer, like it's basically I basically the it I actually had my ovaries removed in
mm,
2011 to head off the possibility of ovarian cancer, um, because I have the BRCA1 gene
gene.
mutation.
Mm,
So I had no ovaries. So there must have been the odd cancer cell already in my peritoneal cavity, or abdominal cavity, just stray. And so the first tumour actually started kind of at the junction of the spleen, the pancreas, the stomach, and the large the uh, the splenic flexure of the
mm,
large intestine. um, so that's where it all began for me. So
mm,
anyway, I just basically when I was diagnosed, I was told I had a spleen there in that spot, and then another one. I was told I had a tumour in that spot, and then I had another tumour in what they called the pouch of Douglas.
mm.
I'd never heard of the pouch of Douglas. I mean, since then, Hannah Gadsby uh, um, it did her thing with Douglas. So
Mm,
and since
mm,
then also, a lot of more people have become more aware of Angelina Jolie. So when I was first doing Angelina's own BRCA1 problems, and the
yeah.
fact that she got her breasts removed and her ovaries taken out. Anyway, so I was very interested and did a lot of research. As a cancer patient, I was, teaching casually at Charles Sturt University here, and basically dumped all my classes, and just didn't earn an income for 6 months, and
Oh,
basically just spent my that 6 months just kind of doing treatment and all this. So I kind of threw myself into the research a bit already then, but then once I'd kind of committed to writing this as my second novel, which I actually uh, declared at the Leaf Bookshop in 2018 at my little
indeed.
launch event. Then someone in the audience said, "What are you going to do next?" And I just found myself saying, "I'm going to write a cancer memoir from the point of view of the organs." And then I had to follow through. Anyway, so
Absolutely.
yeah, I had to follow through. So then I mean, I really, really wanted to um, acknowledge and embrace and go with the science. Um,
Mm,
it was, I don't know if you remember the Belle Gibson scandal, where this woman said she cured her brain tumor just through diet alone, all this sort of
mm,
stuff. There's been all
yeah.
these
Mm,
wellness warrior people who've actually very dangerously said, encourage people not to take up mainstream medicine and to, do it entirely through
alternative.
alternative
Mm,
things. So I
mm,
really wanted to kind of base it in science. And so my problem was that I barely knew any of the science.
mm.
I mean,
Oh, crikey.
it was really a really steep learning curve once I got into it. I mean, it started in 2014, but I really had to get into it. So, for example, uh, Kelly, the gallbladder, um, meets up with Pano at the uh, sphincter of Oddi, and you know, I knew nothing about the sphincter of Oddi before this, but I was studying the abdomen and where
The
where the
anatomy.
where
Mm,
the where the different organs might connect with each other, or
mm,
hold hands or embrace each other or cuddle up to each other. Um, and I stuck to the reality of that. And then the one organ that I did just lift off and not worry about that too much was Ute, and she she got licensed to kind of drive around more broadly because of that phrase, the wandering
True.
womb, which goes back to Galen and the Romans, and he said that the womb is like a creature within a creature, which is amazing. And so I thought, yeah, I'll give myself license to have this one character who is able to drive around the whole place. Um, yeah. So anyway, I had to learn about all this. So I was madly using Google and Wikipedia and Google Images and all that kind of stuff. And then, amazingly, right there, almost as if it's like the universe. I'm not into this woo sort of stuff, but it was amazing bit of
Serendipity.
serendipity. It was as though someone heard my need, and there was this incredible gig going at Sydney Uni at the Charles Perkins Centre for a writer in residence to sit there for the year with scientists, medical scientists, and people who were experts in the body for a year as the writer in residence. And so I applied and got the gig, partly because I threw my organs around in the job interview. So
Excellent.
I made sure I was memorable.
You'd be memorable anyway.
And got that gig. And but then, of course, COVID hit. That was exactly my year. And so I ended up doing a lot of that interaction. Like they said, I could still be the writer in residence, even though I wasn't particularly in residence a lot of the time. I got there as much as I could, but I am immune suppressed. It was actually really important for me to not be wandering around in a big building full of humans. So I got out of there pretty quickly when COVID started rumbling around. And so I did a lot of that research like this. I would Zoom the scientists and Zoom the people and say, and ask them questions like, what do you think the uterus thinks of the colon? Which was
to scientists.
Not the sort of questions they were
used to that.
no, but bless them, most of them just got right into the fun of it, and they just went with it. Yeah. So so talking to the writer in residence, they've had a few, including people like Charlotte Wood and Emily Maguire, Alana Valentine, Mireille Jercho, Sarah Holland-Blatt. Sorry, I'm just feeling like I need to mention everybody now, but yeah.
Oh, they're all wonderful.
Yeah. So they'd had writers in residence before, so they kind of knew that we were going to be, that we're a bit nuts and ask ridiculous questions, and they're kind of there for it, so they'd already been primed in a way. So I was able to just, you can go to Wikipedia, but there's nothing quite like talking to someone who really knows the pancreas or really knows, their way around the organs and also, but it wasn't just the organs. What they really, really gave me was this incredible sense of the dynamism of the human body and communication that's constantly happening between the organs. Like I'd kind of always thought, oh, well, all the messages go to the brain somewhere and then they go back down, or, it's like this thing. It's actually all going sideways. It's just going all around here. We don't hear about any of it much. It's only when you get a bit of pain or something big's going on that you might tune into what's going on in your body. Most of it, all these incredible, like everything the liver does to get rid of your night of brie and wine and crackers. It's
Who told you? Who told you?
It's this amazing cascading, chemical reactions going on, and then talking to the other organs about it all, and and then so Ute's metabolites from her hormones that she suddenly starts producing big time. Those metabolites are kind of cleaned up by Liv, and all this recycling. So they're like this incredible, they are a workplace, very dynamic workplace, constantly sending each other's emails or in Zoom
Dashing off
meetings or
memos. Yeah,
dashing
exactly.
off memos. Yeah, yeah. So that was the main. Because until then, until talking to those scientists and getting that sense of it, I still had that much more machine-like, not machine-like, but more mechanical sort of like, yeah, food goes this in this end, and then it goes to this organ, then it gets passed on to that organ, and then that one and that one. But I didn't have that incredible sense of dynamism and conversation
And communication.
and
Yes, the
communication.
conversation.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Can we talk about the conversation? Because one of the things when I was reading it, I said, who's she writing like? Who's this? Because your dialogue is to die for. And I know that there were, and I was sitting there saying, this isn't like anything I have read before, which is, I think, a pretty fair comment. I don't think I've read anything like as original and as surreal. But if you had to sort of tell me from not the science point of view, but from the sort of the art or literary point of view, were there people who influenced you that you were kind of channeling?
Yeah, yes, yes. Uh, you know, I I kind of love that kind of um, kind of 17th century, really like, Rabelais and Lawrence Stern, those kind of people. Not that I've read a lot of it, but that it's that same surreal landscape.
Mm.
So Rabelais, Gaster is a direct steal from Rabelais'
Okay.
Gargantua and Pantagruel or something like
Mm.
that. It's all
Oh,
on
God.
Gutenberg. It's all on the internet, so you can just
Mm.
kind of go back and look at these things anytime. And I loved the absolutely surreal. Who cares about verisimilitude? Like, let's just run with an idea. So
Yeah.
that was really, really strong at that time. And the more realist novels were more in. I mean, you know, I'm not an expert in any of this, but novels became more realist in the 19th century and 20th century, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm.
So they start out as this wild, surreal romp, and and then kind of calm down and get all serious in a way. But yeah, I kind of like going back to that. Then the other, to be honest, the other influences are things like Enid Blyton, and so when they're all sitting around in the anti-tumor alliance, they're like the Secret Seven
Mm.
in their shed out the back,
I
waiting.
hadn't got that at all. That's hilarious.
um, and
Brilliant.
there's a so it's kind of yeah, Enid Blyton, Sesame Street, which I watched and loved as a child. That
Mm.
and that was very, the visuals in that were very affected by the 60s psychedelic kind of stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, so
Mm.
so I guess children's literature, Willy Wonka, so kind of a combination of high end literature and and postmodernism, like the 80s,
Sure.
Julian
Mm.
Barnes and Milan Kundera and those sort of people. Yeah.
But yes, funnily you said that because one of the things I was thinking when I put the book down, I said, I know this is a book for adults.
Mm,
But gee, you could get kids to, if a version of that, it read like an adventure story for children
yeah.
in so many ways. And that by making the organs into, lovable and such different characters, you kind of felt, well, you could teach children one hell of a lot about their own bodies and also make them very aware of, well, what happens when bodies don't do exactly what we think they're supposed to be doing,
Yeah,
or
that's right.
why they sometimes,
Mm. And I think
go awry.
also, um we're in a world that I don't know much about. So there is something about this childish glee around who are these people and what do they do? Who are they? There's a kind of beginner, um, like
Naivety.
naivety that's very important
Mm.
to it. If I'm setting a novel in cafes in Newtown in Sydney, uh, it's a different world. I know about that. Yeah, blah. So there's something, and it's a little bit like with the Lucky Galah too. It's like we actually, I don't know. We don't know what, like, these are um, more than human or non-human entities. We don't know what they say to each other. So there's a kind of um, it's just kind of like a gleeful making things up aspect to it. Yeah. I don't
Yes,
know.
you had. Yeah.
And then in some ways, halfway through it, I realised I was doing all this world building. There was Rage, there was, Baby, there was, the world of it. And then I thought, damn, I still need to do ordinary old novel things, and have a story and have
Yes.
momentum and kick this thing up and going. Um, and the book I actually literally grabbed out of a second-hand shop was the Poseidon Adventure, which is like, you know,
Hang on,
um,
Tracy.
I'm that literary. So like this little band of people crawling upwards in an upside down ship. Um,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
and then they finally bang a hole through the hull, or they get help, and go out through the hull. And it was like, yeah, I need to I need to kind of get those, because in a way I'm, as I guess a lot of people would recognize this in my writing if they've read both The Lucky Galah and this, is like,
Mm.
plot isn't my where I begin, or
Mm.
it's about world building and
Mm.
and telling stories from a different angle. So it was almost like I needed to just like go, okay, what's a plot? Let's let's get this thing moving.
Let's find one. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll make this. Well, I mean, you did have a sort of a predestined end,
Yes.
possible end points for it. So I presume, but yes, you imposed your plot later onto your sort of
Yeah.
amorphous
Yeah. Yeah.
clubs.
Yeah.
That sounds lovely, doesn't it?
It got a lot.
Anatomically perfect.
Yeah, it got to be a lot of fun actually when I finally just went for it. Like all that world building and worrying about where's the sphincter of Oddy and where's the pouch of Douglas and blah, and then just kind of went for it, as a
Which is
story.
what comes through. That amazingly, you're going to say, why would I want to read a book about cancer? And you just had an absolute. I mean, I had an absolute ball reading my way through this. So it definitely, that joy and sort of gleeful grinning, sort of, let's have at it, is very, very, it's palpable, it's there, it's on the page. Before I let you go, because I can't keep you for too long, I just wanted to ask you, you know who, or I mean, you've talked about your scientists, but what else makes, for you, what made writing this novel a possibility? Because you were, as you say, at a period where you had been unwell, you'd been, or getting over actually your um, treatments or going through them, and work was going to be obviously a bit complicated. You're immunosuppressed. So
Hmm.
who, to whom or to what do you owe the getting through and producing this masterpiece?
Oh, thank you for calling it a masterpiece. um,
I
well,
think it's an essential piece of Australian writing.
oh, thank you. I well,
Mm.
if you, I mean, to be honest, Steve, my partner Steve,
Mm.
you know,
Mm.
um, um, because when I got really ill, I couldn't always keep up my, casual teaching gigs at the university. I mean, I was
Mm.
always a sessional, so as soon as you stop working, you stop getting any money. No such thing as sick leave or
Yeah,
anything like that. So he
golly.
he he in a quite literal and practical sense, has um, created the conditions. Well,
Mm.
kept paying the mortgage is basically what I'm saying.
Sure. Mm.
um,
Yeah.
while I get ill and stop earning money and that kind of stuff. So if it, so that's a huge thing in that literal sense. And yeah, I think the other thing is my mad brain. You know, with all its tabs open, and the tabs are all
Yes.
infecting each other, and
Mm.
that's kind of made me quite scatty in a way. My year 5 teacher called me scatterbrain because he'd get a bit frustrated with my daydreaming. But I am lucky that one of my organs is a daydreamer. So it's just kind of like harvesting something out of that's going
Mm.
to work. Yeah.
And is your scatty brain, really just enjoying this moment of having come to the end of the writing end of your novel, or is it already working on something new? You don't have to answer that with anything
Yeah.
sort of, yes, my next novel's going to be about fish,
Yes, it might
you
be
know.
about fish, literally. No, I I I I don't have, like, last time when I was asked after the launch of The Lucky Galah, what are you going to do next? I
Oh,
had an answer. At this point, I don't have an answer. Um, uh, so I'm looking forward to that moment because as soon as it takes me, um, it's like it just becomes a compulsion. But it hasn't
mm,
taken me, and I think having this recurrence of the cancer and having to go back to
yes.
chemo
Oh,
has just kind of like been a shocker. But as soon as I've kind of come out of this treatment cycle, um, in a couple of months I'll be you know out of
looking
chemo.
for the next.
Yeah, I'll,
Oh,
I'll
good.
be I'll be I'll be open to what comes next.
Yeah, we'll all be waiting for it. But anyway, we're going to have great fun um, talking this one up to everybody. Look, Tracy, I think I've kept you for long enough. I mean, it's fascinating listening to you talk, and I am keeping in my mind that very interesting point, which I think is very relevant to our today about the sort of the ecological aspect of us as humans. I think you've said that beautifully, and it's something we all have to try to hold in our minds at the moment, is that we are quite small. There are a couple of very big, noisy people ruining it for humanity, but it's fascinating to get a novel that sort of shows us another way of being less important than we probably think we are.
Yeah.
But you are a very important person. You've written a great book, and I'm so pleased, that it's so different, it's so surreal, it's so much fun, and I'm so looking forward to getting everybody to read this. So, Tracy, thank you for writing it, and thank you for chatting to me about it. And if you hang on for a second, I'll just say goodbye to everybody first, and then we'll just resume between us. So everybody, that was me and Tracy Sorensen chatting about the Vitals. I hope you've enjoyed that, and come in and buy it. Talk to you soon.
The novel kind of emerged from a hobby or a kind of a consolation activity I was doing while I was being treated for cancer in 2014. It was a pretty grueling year. They ended up removing a whole lot of my organs and snipping others in a surgery that's called debulking surgery. Um, that's the official medical name. So this, for example, is my crocheted liver. Uh, this is the where can you see that? That's
That's
actually
good.
the large intestine. It's actually got a little
Mm-hmm.
pair of eyes. Uh,
Cute.
this this is the pancreas. Again, has eyes. This is Ute the uterus. Her eyes have
Oh.
fallen off just
Mm-hmm.
for now. Who else have we got here? This is Maureen, the greater omentum. She's just an apron of fat. Uh, this is looks a bit like a brain, but in fact, this is the small intestine. And what I've kind of included is the mesentery, which is the connective tissue that holds the whole show to the back to the back of the abdominal cavity. Often that's
Mm.
kind of left out of representations of the small intestine. We have gaster, the stomach, uh, peri, the peritoneum, who's just kind of like a kind of a glistening kind of bit of glad wrap.
Mm. Mm.
Who else have we got? Oh, rage, the spleen. This is mini rage. I also have a
Wow.
bigger rage than this. So that's the,
Oh, that sounds good, Tracy.
yeah, I have a large rage. Um,
Mm.
okay, and then gallbladder. Now, the other
Great.
thing I did represent, and these are kind of later representations, but that's the tumor at the bottom. It's a rabbit,
Mm.
and this is the tumor up in the top left quadrant of the abdomen, baby. So
Mm.
yeah, so as I kind of crocheted these organs, they started to suggest themselves a little bit as personalities or characters, but it wasn't really until, so that was 2014. It wasn't really until 2018 that I returned full force to this idea.